This segment is the plate filling protocol for the WellPro 4000CE. This function allows you to fill microplates or microtubes from reservoirs with disposable tips. We're going to open a user file, open a user program, and we will choose plate filling 50 microliters, and we'll select that, and it loads the file that we have programmed as plate filling 50 microliters T80. T80 is what we label it so we know it is coming from a specific reservoir, in this case the 80 ml reservoir. I'm going to hit the Edit User Program here so that we can show you some other functions. If you don't touch the Edit File button, then you cannot accidentally make changes to it, so for me to demonstrate changes and flexibility here, we have to edit that file. You can select different liquid handling speeds, low, medium, or high. Basically, aspirate and dispense speeds, so you can control the speed if you have very viscous samples. Your tip rack magazine, in this case, we are working in the landscape mode. You can select landscape, or if you want to work by column, you can select portrait. We're going to run this in landscape, and we're going to tell it to begin with a specific tip row. You have the choice of picking a row that this file begins with. You can select next available row, which is keeping track of the next clean row of tips so that you don't risk any cross-contamination issues. Or you can select to have it ask you each time you use the instrument what specific row you would like to use. We'll set this to begin with row H of a tip magazine. So this is your first screen. On the left is your general settings. It shows you your speed, the name of the program, what device the tips are in, and where you're going to start with the tips. The next screen on your right shows you the type of plate that you are using, which in this case shows a 96 well plate in a landscape format. It shows a transfer volume of 200 microliters. We are going to change that to 50 microliters. Any box that has a number or letter in it can either be changed by clicking on it to call it up in the keypad, or by using the drop-down box to select which plate. So this is a 50 microliter transfer. We are going to go from our 100 ml reservoir, which is our cold trough. This reservoir has gel packs built into it, so you can refrigerate your reagents or samples before transfer if desired. We are not going to do any mixing in this particular case, but if you want, you can mix either in the reservoir or in the plate, and you can select what the mixed volume would be. The system wants to know what our volume in the reservoir when we start is, so that it knows how far down to go into the reservoir to pick up the sample. It also wants to know if you want to track the volume as you use it, so that it will alert you when you are running low on a sample for a particular test. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to run now. It is going to ask me to verify that I have my tips in the landscape mode. My reservoir is a 100 ml cold trough reservoir, and my 96 plate is in the standard landscape position. On the left of the touchscreen, the text indicates the appropriate steps as the instrument performs them, how much each step transfers, etc. The right side of this screen graphically shows at a glance where the instrument is regarding the steps within the file. The instrument also indicates the reservoir volume is 47 ml at this point, and as more plates are used, this function will continue to track that volume. Also shown here is the next available tip that is available to use if you're doing the next clean tip. As shown on the bottom of the touchscreen, that process took 52 seconds. The instrument logs every event that occurs. It logs every transfer to every row or column. If selected, the track data logging and the security software, depending on the requirements of your laboratory, will track all functions by username when enabled. You would then have a username, a file name, which file protocol was operated, and every event that occurred in that file. The instrument would then log that file by date and time. So if you needed documents, you are GLP, GMP, or 21 CFR Part 11 regulated, this instrument can provide you the regulatory compliance that you need. Depending on your individual needs and the requirements of the system administrator, the system can also be run without the data logging. Once your file is completed, you can repeat or exit the file. In this case, we will exit. Something that has not been touched on here is that if you go back to your general settings, you have the choice of always changing tips with each row or column as you fill it. Thus, if you want a clean row of tips per row or per column, you may select this dialog box. Again, you can ask the system to use the next available clean row of tips. If we look in this section, you have the option to use an aliquot, which is another example of the flexibility of the plate-to-plate transfer file. On the liquid handling screen, we're going to tell the system we want to transfer 25 microliters, and we're going to transfer that into all rows of a 96 well plate. So you can select or deselect rows if you do not want to fill the entire plate. At this time, we're asking the system to perform an aliquot. So we're going to transfer 25 microliters into each row. We're obviously not changing tips because we're performing an aliquot, so we're going to pick up 200 microliters from the 100 ml reservoir and transfer 25 microliters per row into the 96 well plate. The system asks again for magazine plate position verification on the instrument and deck. The instrument picks up the tips, then retrieves the 200 microliters from the reservoir, and then dispenses 25 microliters to each row. That process took right at 20 seconds to fill the plate. If you're filling plates and you need precision, the disposable tips are the best route and still provides a very rapid plate filling process by using the aliquot function. If you choose to use the aliquot function, and for example, if you want to transfer 50 microliters per row, the instrument will pick up 200 microliters and dispense 50 microliters into row A, B, C, and D, and then go back and pick up another 200 microliters to rows E, F, G, and H. The aliquot function saves considerable time if you were just transferring a reagent to a 96 well plate. Thank you again for your interest in the ProGroup WellPro instruments.